A Tale of Magic. Chapter 19, The Northern Front. Bristol and her classmates hurried out of the greenhouse canyon and tracked through the in-between as quickly as possible. The closer they traveled toward the Northern Kingdom, the more the temperature dropped, and each mile felt drastically colder than the one before. The children bundled themselves tightly in their coats to endure the chilly air. But the declining weather wasn't nearly as bothersome as their sinking spirits. Bristol's conversation with the Tree of Truth was difficult for her friends to process, and hearing about it took a visible toll on them. Even though Madam Weatherberry had lied to them for honorable reasons, the students and apprentices felt betrayed by their teacher. They lowered their heads and somberly walked through the forest in silence. When the group reached the halfway point between the Greenhouse Canyon and the Black Bear Cave, they took their first break since leaving the Enchanted Gardens. They sat on a fallen log to rest their feet, and Bristol decided to address the issue on their minds before they continued any farther. "I understand you're all disappointed," she said. "It's never easy to find out you've been lied to by someone you love. But if you really think about it, the truth about fairies and witches doesn't change anything. We're still the same people we were at the academy, and Madam Weatherberry is still the same person we set out to save. Everything she's ever done, writing the truth about magic, standing up to the Snow Queen, starting the academy, it's all been to protect and gain acceptance from the magical community. We can forgive her for making a few mistakes along the way, can't we?" The students thought about Madam Weatherberry's intentions and ultimately agreed with Bristol's perspective, but the apprentices weren't convinced. "Tangerina, Skylene," Bristol said, "I know this is more difficult for you too, because you've known Madam Weatherberry the longest. It's perfectly fine to feel whatever you're feeling right now, but one day I think I'll look back on this and it's not just about Madam Weatherberry," Tangerina confessed. "I've always thought fairies were better than witches, and I liked feeling better than something else. It helped me cope with all the hatred the world sent us. Believing I was born that way made me feel valuable, like the universe was on my side." "Me too," Skylene said, "and we hated witches just like humankind hates us. But now we know we're not better than witches, and we're not any better than humankind either." Bristol knelt in front of her troubled friends and placed a hand on both of their knees. "We're all just a couple of mistakes away from becoming the people we despise," she said. "So don't think worse of yourself, but let this change how you think of yourself. Start valuing who you are more than what you are. Prove you're better than most people by showing more acceptance and empathy, and fuel your pride with what you earn and create, instead of what you're born with." Tangerina and Skylene went quiet as they considered Bristol's encouraging proposal. The changes she suggested weren't easy, but it would take a lot of time and hard work, but her message inspired them to try. "You're really good at pep talks," Tangerina said. "Like, sometimes it's weird how good you are." Bristol laughed. "I have a good teacher," she said. "We all do." After a short break, the classmates continued through the in-between and toward the Black Bear Cave. Every few steps, Bristol compulsively checked her geography book to make sure they were going in the right direction. Within the hour, they arrived at an enormous cave at the side of a wide hill. The entrance was surrounded by several black boulders stacked to make the cave look like the mouth of a giant bear. I'm guessing that's Black Bear Cave, Emeralda said. Wait, do we think there are bears in there? Sanctus asked. Probably, Lucy said. I doubt Black Bear Cave got its name for housing flamingos. Does that worry anyone else? He asked. I mean, are we actually going inside a bear cave with a girl covered in honey? Everyone turned to Tangerina and eyed her honeycomb jacket with concern. Oh yeah, Bristol said. Sanctus brings up a good point. Before they could discuss a possible precaution, the classmates were distracted by a freezing wind that blew through the forest. The wind was followed by a thunderous commotion, and suddenly the dark woods became much darker. The group looked up and saw the gray clouds of a terrible storm rolling in from the north. As the clouds covered the sky, a powerful snowstorm surged through the in-between like a white tsunami. What's going on? Tangerina asked. It's a blizzard, Bristol exclaimed. Everyone into the cave now! The classmates dashed through the forest, and the blizzard chased after them like a swirling white monster. They arrived at the cave's entrance just as the storm collided with the hillside. Bristol and her friends sprinted into the cave until the blizzard's icy winds couldn't reach them. That wasn't a normal blizzard, was it? Skylene asked. No, Bristol said. The Snow Queen's destruction is spreading beyond the Northern Kingdom. This isn't just about saving Nana Weatherberry anymore. We've got to head to Tinsel Heights and stop the Snow Queen before the whole world is covered in one big storm. The future seemed grim, and as they journeyed deeper into the Black Bear Cave, their environment became just as dark. Soon the cave was pitch black, and the classmates could barely see one another. They heard another thunderous commotion coming from ahead, and they worried the blizzard had found a way inside. Ah! Lucy suddenly screamed. What happened? Sanctus asked. Sorry, I just felt something hairy against my leg, Lucy said. Tangerina, was that you? Very funny, Tangerina said, but I'm behind you. Bristol waved her wand and illuminated the cave with twinkling lights. All the classmates screamed when they discovered they were surrounded by over 100 black bears. Bristol and her friends grabbed one another and looked around the cave in terror. But luckily, their panic was unnecessary because all the creatures were sound asleep on the ground. The snoring bears were even louder than the blizzard outside. Did someone give them simple slumber sleeping salt too? Skylene asked. No, they're hibernating, Emeralda said. But it's way too early for bears to hibernate, Sanctus said. It's still spring. The cold weather must be confusing them, Emeralda said. I doubt they had time to gather enough food to survive very long. Nothing is going to survive a winter that lasts forever, Bristol said. Now everyone look for the abandoned goblin tunnel. The tree of truth said it's somewhere in the back of the cave. The classmates searched every corner of the cave and finally found a tunnel flanked by two horrifying goblin statues. Bristol waved her wand, and all the twinkling lights through the cave flew into the tunnel to light the passageway. The classmates saw it was perfectly round. Its walls were carved with symbols from an ancient goblin language, and it seemed virtually endless as it stretched into the distance. Before our classmates could get intimidated by the lengthy tunnel, Bristol led them inside. The students and apprentices walked for hours and hours. The passageway appeared to stretch in a perfectly straight line beneath the in-between. Bristol tried to trace their steps in the geography book, but the tunnel wasn't recorded in any of the maps, so it was impossible to tell exactly where they were. Eventually, the tunnel split into two different directions, and Bristol had the nerve-wracking task of choosing which way to go. Well, Emeralda asked her, where should we go? Bristol looked back and forth at the tunnels, and she glanced up and down at her geography book. But she had no idea where either branch headed. I think Tinsel Heights is to the right. Wait, to the left. No, it's to the right. Bristol marched into the tunnel to her right. Confident she was making the correct choice, her classmates followed her. But just a few yards into the tunnel, they noticed someone was missing. Bristol looked back and saw Lucy. Lucy was lingering behind them. Lucy, what are you doing? Bristol asked. We're going the wrong way, Lucy said. We should take the tunnel to the left. No, the tunnel to the right makes more sense, Bristol said. Trust me, I've thought about this. Blackbear Cave is the southeast of the Northern Kingdom, which means this tunnel is heading in the northwest direction. If the tunnel continues in a straight line, it's much more likely Tinsel Heights will be our right than our left. Stop thinking logically, Lucy said. Goblins aren't logical creatures. They didn't care how straight the tunnel was. They just dug until they found something. But my gut is telling me we should go to the right, Bristol said. And my gut is telling me we should go to the left, Lucy said. Look, we always joke that I have a specialty for trouble, and right now I sense a lot of trouble coming from the left. Please, you have to trust me on this. I can feel it in my bones. Bristol was hesitant to change directions. Her eyes darted between Lucy and the geography book, but she couldn't decide whose instincts to follow. If they made the wrong choice, they'd never make it to the Northern Kingdom in time to save Madam Weatherberry. Fortunately, Bristol didn't have to make the decision on her own. I think we should trust Lucy, Tangerina said. Everyone was shocked by Tangerina's faith in Lucy. Really? Bristol asked. You do? Absolutely, Tangerina said. If there's one thing Lucy knows how to do, it's stumble into a bad situation. Her gut would never lead us to safety. Lucy opened her mouth to argue, but then went silent because she knew Tangerina was right. None of the classmates objected to Tangerina's recommendation. They all knew Lucy had a knack for trouble. Bristol took a deep breath and prayed her friends were correct. All right, she said, we're going to the left. A couple miles into the left tunnel, Bristol was finally able to breathe easy. The passageway began to curve to the right and headed in the direction Bristol had thought the other tunnel would take them. She checked the map of magic and was extremely relieved to see her and her classmates' stars appear in the Northern Kingdom. You were right, Lucy, Bristol said. We're almost at Tinsel Heights. Lucy shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. Don't mention it, she said. I've got a sixth sense for danger. I don't mean to interrupt this warm moment of recognition, Emeralda said. But do we have a plan for how we're going to save Madam Weatherberry and stop the Snow Queen once we reach Tinsel Heights? Bristol had been mulling over a strategy since they entered the Blackbear Cave, but she was so focused on getting to Tinsel Heights that she hadn't told the others what to expect when they arrived. The Tree of Truth told me the Snow Queen is keeping Madam Weatherberry in Tinsel Palace, Bristol said. We'll go to the palace and lure the Snow Queen out with a distraction. When she's away, we'll go inside and find Madam Weatherberry. Then we'll wait for the Snow Queen to return. Take her by surprise and kill her, Scanlan asked. Yes, Bristol said with difficulty. How are we going to do that? Singtha said. I suppose there are more possibilities now that we know witchcraft is an option. Bristol knew that part of the plan was inevitable, but she didn't know how they were going to go through with it. So, despite all the suffering and damage the Snow Queen had caused, Bristol couldn't fathom hurting her, let alone ending her life. I'm not sure yet, she told the others, but I'll think of something.